Happy Sunday, folks, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where I review all the pay-per-views I watch on the WWE Network. As I've said before, the entire month of April is dedicated to old Backlash events that I've been watching on the network. Today is all about the '03 installment, which I really enjoyed on the whole, along with the '04 installment, which I'll be talking about on Tuesday. But if you missed it, my reviews of 1999, 2000, '01, and '02 of Backlash are already up here on the channel, as well as '09 from last year. But so far, in the last couple of weeks anyway, in which I'm talking about. But the 2000 and '01 installments, I mean, pretty much all of them have been really either good to great to amazing, and this one was no exception. I thought this was a fantastic show on the whole, and we'll dissect it right now. Kicking off with the tag team title match, the WWE tag team titles on the line between Team Angle, Shelton Benjamin, and Charlie Haas, defending against Los Guerreros, Eddie and Chavo. So a really good match. I mean, this was around the time that the tag team division was not starting to heat up, but it already was heating up on both the Raw and SmackDown brands, primarily over on SmackDown with Edge and Rey, and Angle and Benoit, the Guerreros, Team Angle, the world's greatest tag team, whatever you want to call them. The tag team division over on SmackDown was amazing, and this match kind of definitely showcased the skills of the tag team competitors over on the Blue brand by kicking off the show on a high note with some great action. In the end, Team Angle would cheat to win. They were still the tag team champions, but they would not leave the arena with their tag team titles. The Guerreros, in typical Guerrero fashion, would steal the titles and kind of ride off in their lowrider, both Eddie and Chavo, with the tag team belts in tow. They weren't the champions, but they took the titles. They took the championship belts from the reigning champions. So a really good match and a nice post-fun match, a little angle from the Guerreros. So a very good way to kick off the show. Up next, Sean O'Haire taking on Rikishi. It was cool to see Sean O'Haire. I've always been a really big fan of his work. I mean, rest in peace, he passed away last fall, I think it was. I think he committed suicide last September. Absolutely traumatic incident. But I watched his work back for the first time about, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe back in 2011, I think it was. It's crazy to think it's been that long. But, some of the best pre-match, pre-debut vignettes I've ever seen for anyone in WWE history. I know something that you don't know, or what was it? I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know. I thought that was a great line. The manipulation aspect of it, I thought was phenomenal. The guy was great in everything he did on the mic. In the ring, I mean, it wasn't a 5-star an in-ring technician or anything like that, but he was a good worker and very impressive for his size, taking on a guy of the size of Rikishi. I know he cheated to win, but he would take Rikishi up on his shoulders and deliver his, like, an inverted F5 or an inverted AA. I mean, it's kind of hard what to call it. Kind of hard to describe it, but he would pick him up on his shoulders, Rikishi, and deliver his finisher to him, and I thought it was pretty impressive. But a glorified squash match for the most part. Rikishi was a nice, credible first opponent for Sean O'Haire upon his re-debut over on SmackDown with Roddy Piper as his manager. And you would think that, with Roddy Piper, one of the greatest of all time, being aligned with him, with Piper, would do wonders for Sean O'Haire's career. And on paper, you would think it would. But unfortunately, the whole thing with Hogan and McMahon and that whole saga and Piper kind of getting involved, I mean, it really took away from it for the most part. I mean, I know Sean O'Haire was kind of linked to that story, but he was merely a background player. They would do next to nothing with him. I think he got injured late in 2003 or whenever, 2003, and then he got released or quit or something like that. But they never really went anywhere with him, and I thought he was a great talent. World champion, maybe. I don't know. It's really hard to say. But I thought the guy was great. I thought he really had a lot of untapped potential. And this matchup was kind of a prime example of that. I thought he was really impressive in his outing against Rikishi here. Nice showing against the former Intercontinental and Tag Team Champion and future Hall of Famer, as we would come to find out 12 years later. But nice squash match from Sean O'Haire, but it was kind of a sad reminder of what could have been with his character had WWE not botched his push. Up next for the World Tag Team Championships, RVD and Kane defending against the Dudley Boys, with Chief Morley, a.k.a. Val Venus, as the special guest referee. So he had documented issues with RVD and Kane, but in this matchup he would come to blows with the Dudley Boys, which would lead to RVD and Kane kind of imploding, or not imploding as a team, defending their tag team championship, successfully retaining their gold. So a good tag team match, not as good as the opener between Team Angle and Los Guerreros, but this one had more of a story to it anyway, so I'll kind of excuse it. And it's always awesome to see the Dudleys in action. I'm a huge fan of those guys. Popped huge when I saw Bubba Ray return to the Rumble. Still one of my favorite returns of all time. So hearing that music of theirs and the dropping of the bomb or whatever it is, that it gives chills. It sends chills down my spine every single time I hear it. But a really good tag team match. Like I said, not as good as the WWE Tag Team title match from earlier, but still a solid match. That told a nice story with with Chief Morley serving as the special guest referee, kind of backfiring on the Dudley Boys, leading to a successful title defense for RVD and Kane. So a good tag team match from those guys. Up next for the Women's Championship, Jazz once again defending against Trish Stratus, and a rematch from the year prior. I thought I had deja vu watching this matchup. The only difference with this match in the year prior, it's interesting that they face each other back-to-back years, but the only difference that Trish Stratus was walking into this match as champion, and I think winning it in a triple threat match at WrestleMania, much like Jazz won her women's championship in a triple threat at WrestleMania. Kind of the exact opposite the following year at WrestleMania 19. So Trish walked into this match as champion and would lose the title back to Jazz. And I think they cut a promo both before and after the match, maybe just before, with Jazz saying that she was the baddest bitch in the company, all this other stuff. And like I mentioned in my previous video, for those who missed it in my O2 installment, in my O2 review, I think Jazz is an inevitable WWE Hall of Famer. As I mentioned in that video, there's really not many credible people left to put into the WWE Hall of Fame. I know you have your AJs and your Mickie James and maybe even your Victorias and those kind of girls, but maybe even an Eve down the line as well. But I think with Jazz specifically, kind of revolutionized women's wrestling. Alongside the other women of that era, Trish and Lita, Jazz was a prime, a prominent player in the women's division around this time as well, in the late Attitude Era and going into the Ruthless Aggression Era as well. So she doesn't really get the recognition she deserves. And like I said in my previous video and here in this one, I think she does eventually deserve that recognition as being a part of the WWE Hall of Fame in the women's class. So up next, Big Show versus Rey Mysterio. So of course, on paper, this does not seem like the most realistic matchup, but I like the story they were telling going into it, with the two kind of having, being at odds over on the SmackDown brand. And I forgot to note this before, but this was, after the fact that the brand extension was already in effect, but it was before the fact that the pay-per-views were split up between Raw and SmackDown. This was a dual-branded pay-per-view. It wouldn't be until after SummerSlam, or maybe a couple months after this, I think until maybe June or July of 2003 that the pay-per-views would finally be split up between the two shows. But nevertheless, from the SmackDown brand, Big Show versus Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio kind of not already, he debuted only maybe 6 months prior in the match against Kurt Angle, but Rey Mysterio to me has always been better in the looking strong in defeat role as opposed to always overcoming the odds, which is why people kind of grew sick of him beyond, 06 and beyond, because he would always come out victorious in every single match that he had. It was kind of like the John Cena of SmackDown for a while. And that wasn't really the case with him early on in his career, especially in this match with Big Show. There really is no comparison. There was the monster that is Big Show and the smaller wrestler that is Rey Mysterio. Not a midget, but you know what I mean. A huge size difference. But that's what made this match fun, with Rey Mysterio kind of battling back against the Big Show in kind of an enhanced version of David versus Goliath. And like I mentioned before, Rey Mysterio kind of thrives and shines in that role, and he definitely did so here. I love the finish too, with Rey Mysterio hitting the 619 3 times. And I think Taz, let me look it up again because I forgot what it was. I'm going to pull up the calculator here on my computer. I forgot what the exact number was, but he just he multiplied a 619 times 3, and he got 1857. He hit the 619 to Big Show, I think in his head and his knees, his stomach, whatever, 3 different times. In Big Show, or Taz on commentary was like, he hit the 1857. It was pretty funny. But in going for the West Coast pop, Big Show caught him in midair, would not allow him to go down first before choke slamming him. So a brutal choke slam and a really fun match. The match was only like 3 or 4 minutes long, but for what it was, very entertaining. Might I argue more entertaining than some of the undercard matches on this show. So yeah, Big Show coming out victorious, a logical win for him, but he would add insult to injury by, after the match, taking out Mysterio, who was being stretchered out on a stretcher, after the massive impact of the chokeslam kind of seemed a little bit embellished, just a little bit, like I said, because, Rey Mysterio has taken worse bumps in his career, and that was definitely not the worst of it. But when he was being taken out on the stretcher, Big Show would take the stretcher and proceeds to pick him up by the side of the stretcher while Rey Mysterio was all strapped in and whack it against the ring post. And it was a great visual. The crowd was like, oh, shit. You know what I mean? It was awesome. And it put a lot of good heat on Big Show, continued the feud, and made Rey Mysterio look extremely sympathetic. So, successful job, 2 thumbs up for that match. You would think on paper, a 3-minute match with Big Show squashing Rey Mysterio, that isn't good. The exact opposite. I thought it was a lot of fun, and the post-match stuff was great too. A great visual. So our first of 3 main events on this show: Brock Lesnar defending against Brock Lesnar defending the WWE Championship against John Cena. Sound familiar? Almost 12 years before, or about maybe 9 years before they met at Extreme Rules, almost exactly 9 years before they met at Extreme Rules in Brock Lesnar's return match to the WWE in 2012, they would face off for the WWE title at Backlash 03. Now, this was coming off Brock Lesnar's win at WrestleMania, his championship win over Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19. Kurt Angle had to take some time off I think, to rehab his injured neck. So in the meantime, they had to kind of fill in that time by having Brock Lesnar feud as someone like kind of as a throwaway opponent, a filler opponent for him to go into Backlash to feud against. And there was so much talent over on the SmackDown brand. You had Kurt Angle, you had Benoit, you had all these other guys, The Undertaker, who John Cena beat in a tournament match. And ultimately, they went with the up-and-comer, the guy who had debuted in WWE no more than a year prior to this, John Cena. And the guy had a great showing both in the match and going into it. The pre-match promo with him he was still doing the rapping gimmick at this point, but it was really entertaining. And at one point, even though he got heat when he came out, and Brock Lesnar was intended to be the babyface, towards the end, his showing was so good that the crowd started favoring John Cena over Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar has never been the best babyface. Like, if he turned today, I don't know what would happen. I think he'd still be over. But back in 02, or 03, when he didn't have Heyman as his mouthpiece, people were not as red hot for Lesnar as they are right now, or eventually would be when he was the heel again. But a really good match, though. John Cena had a great showing against Brock Lesnar in almost a 15-minute matchup, going longer than the main event between Goldberg and Rock. So John Cena looked great in defeat. Brock Lesnar picking him out for the F5, connecting with it. John Cena, I think, hitting the FU, I think, on Brock Lesnar. Either that, or he wasn't doing the SDF by this point. I think he hit the FU. And, of course, the FU was intended to be a knockoff of Brock Lesnar. That was the whole reason why he started doing the AA, the FU, whatever you want to call it, as a kind of a mocking of Brock Lesnar's F5. And I think he kicked out of that. And Brock Lesnar, like I said, ultimately coming out victorious, still the WWE champion. So, years before John Cena, almost 2 years prior before John Cena would being one of the headlining matches at WrestleMania for the WWE title where he would win his first world championship. Having a great showing against Brock Lesnar, his first true test as a main event player here at Backlash 03. So kind of a blast from the past between Lesnar and John Cena, kind of on par with all their other great matches in 2012 and 2014 and 2015 respectively. So up next, 6-man tag team action with Triple H, Chris Jericho, and Ric Flair teaming up against Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, and Booker T. So I really, really liked that. This pay-per-view was all about Goldberg's first match. And instead of going with a world championship match, so both the world title matches would have been underneath the main event, with nothing at stake between Goldberg and Rock. They didn't want to have it, the world championship be on the line, so they put these 6 guys together. And it wasn't a random, Raw main event 6-man tag team match like we see every single fucking week. It felt special. Triple H had just come off of WrestleMania, his title defense with Booker T, so that was kind of explained his involvement in this matchup. Shawn Michaels and Jericho had a great match at WrestleMania 19 as well, and also Shawn Michaels had history with Triple H. Now, Kevin Nash coming back from injury and, posing a threat to Triple H's title reign. The big question was who he would side with, Triple H's best friend or Shawn Michaels, another former friend of his dating back to the mid-90s, the late 90s, with HBK and Diesel. They did not shy away from acknowledging the two gimmicks, but still a solid tag team match that I thought told a great story, with Kevin Nash ultimately siding with the babyfaces Michaels and Booker T, setting up the 6-man tag team match for Backlash. So for the most part, the match wasn't like a red hot 6-man tag team match or anything. It was pretty standard for the most part, pretty formulaic for, I would say, the first 2/3 of the match. Pretty standard 6-man tag team action. But down the stretch, though, everyone kind of got in their multiple signature spots, everyone going crazy, hitting sweet chin musics and everything, the lion salt. everyone hitting their finishers, so I thought it was pretty cool. So a really well wrestled match, especially towards the end. But the only real thing, I mean, I was completely fine with Triple H and Flair and Jericho winning. I would have liked the babyfaces to win, but I guess they wanted to give Jericho a win too. I know he didn't pick up the pinfall win, but he lost to Jericho at WrestleMania, and I guess they wanted to put Triple H over. Why, I have no idea. It didn't really make much sense. But the only thing that bothered me about the match, I think, was Triple H used a sledgehammer on Kevin Nash to pick up the victory. But why pin Kevin Nash? You know, given the other people in the matchup, you could have pinned Shawn Michaels, who really didn't go on to do much for the rest of 03, or at least from this moment forward. And then Booker T especially. The guy would never be a main eventer for the next 3 or 4 years. So what was the point of him being in... I mean, I understood, like I said before, his involvement in the matchup and his storied history with Triple H. But why not have him be the one to get pinned? You know, Kevin Nash just came back. It didn't ruin his momentum to get pinned in this match. But it just didn't make sense. I mean, I guess they probably wanted to push the narrative that Triple H was going to hold nothing back against Kevin Nash and, you know, completely show that they were not friends. They were full-fledged enemies at this point. Maybe they wanted to kind of push that narrative and show that a little bit. But the match itself, I mean, just having him get pinned didn't make much sense. If they wanted to set him up as a future world title contender, in which they did, I believe they faced off for the title at Judgment Day the following month, having him be the one to get pinned wasn't the most logical thing in the world, but it was what it was. Standard 6-man tag team match, pretty solid for the most part. Didn't agree with the ending, but for the most part I enjoyed it. We get to the main event, Goldberg versus The Rock, a dream match in the minds of many. Goldberg arriving in WWE the night after WrestleMania 19, immediately laying waste to The Rock in one of his segments of proclaiming that he was the greatest of all time after laying out Undertaker and Kurt Angle and Stone Cold and Triple H and everybody. Having beaten everybody, he had yet to beat Goldberg. So Goldberg came in and wrestled his first match on this show. Goldberg was never the greatest in-ring wrestler, and I'm not the biggest Goldberg mark anyway. Like, if he never came back to WWE, I personally would not really care. Like, I would mark if he ever came back. It's been well over 10 years. I've never seen Goldberg in WWE, having started watching in 2008. So I would mark for it, but it's not like I have a burning desire to see him back in the company. But, still, the guy was a spectacle. He wasn't, like I said, the greatest wrestler in the world, but what made him so successful over in WCW was the fact, aside from the undefeated streak, of course, was that he was an attraction. The guy was a monster, and one of the things that got WCW over in its final years as one of its biggest baby faces. And, of course, they would fuck that up by him getting beaten and turning heel and all this other shit. But for the time that he was there, he did a lot to help that company. And one of the front runners that made WCW what it was. So he came in with a lot of fanfare. The people were very much behind him during this matchup. Not so much towards the end, which I thought was pretty funny, because The Rock... One of the leading reasons why he went heel to begin with was that, people started resenting him for leaving to go film movies and all this other shit. So that's why he embodied that and kind of, became the epitome of what people hated and becoming this Hollywood douche, Hollywood Rock, Dwayne Johnson, whatever you want to call him. And, he became a heel. He was really over, getting a lot of heat going into his match with Stone Cold at WrestleMania. But then, because he was so great in his role, people started to favor The Rock again. So he had a great showing against Goldberg here. It was more of an entertaining matchup than it was like an in-ring mat classic or anything. But it was weird. There were some boos for Goldberg. I don't think because they hated Goldberg, but probably because they didn't want to see Rocky either leave or lose. Because I think it was pretty well known by this point that Rocky was already kind of on his way out in Goldberg's first match and he wasn't going to lose. Then again, they made, Brock Lesnar lose his first match back in 2012, and Sting lose his first match at WrestleMania 31. But nevertheless, an entertaining matchup, though, to see Goldberg in a WWE ring for the first time. It didn't meet, like, in the Icon versus Icon hype. Not really. It was no John Cena versus Rock at WrestleMania 28. It didn't have that kind of build-up. But, for what it was really entertaining. Really cool to see two of the biggest stars of the Attitude Era, both in WWE and WCW respectively, go head-to-head with Goldberg, picking up his first win in his debut match in WWE. So like I said, a great pay-per-view in the whole. I really, really enjoyed it, especially the final few matches. I thought the latter half of the show, the second half was way better than the first, but even the first half of the show I thought was still solid, making for a good undercard. The two tag team title matches were very, very good to great. Sean O'Haire versus Rikishi, not a great match, but it served its purpose in putting over Sean O'Haire. Jazz versus Trish, good women's match, nothing too special, but it was fine for what it was. People weren't really into it all that much, but it was good for what it was. Big Show versus Rey Mysterio, a very fun match. Brock Lesnar and Cena, a strong outing for the future WWE champion and John Cena, and a good match from Brock Lesnar as well. solid 6-man tag team match that furthered a story, and Goldberg's first match in WWE. So a very noteworthy, entertaining pay-per-view with only one new champion being crowned for the Women's Championship, and that was about it. So I would absolutely agree that you should go out of your way, strongly suggest, that you go out of your way on the WWE Network to check out Backlash 2003. I thought it was a great show from start to finish, especially the final few matches. I'll be back on Tuesday with my review of Backlash 2004, an equally excellent pay-per-view, for more reasons than one, and I'll get to that on Tuesday. But in the meantime, and in between time, folks, you can find me on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe this video, and to my channel. Always appreciate it. Videos are going up every single day, with a new video on Monday, #AskGSM, my reviews of Backlash and everything else I watch on the network on Tuesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Wednesdays and Thursdays, WrestleRant radio excerpts that you'll find nowhere else aside from the show itself. And on Fridays, my random video blog. So new content going up on every single day. So you'll get a notification every single time a new video goes up if you subscribe. So I appreciate that. So in the meantime, and in between time, folks, as I said before, have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll catch you guys on Tuesday.